I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things, all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. And this week was the annual NXT Halloween Havoc. However, this year, instead of just being their weekly show, that is also a special Halloween Havoc show, this was its own event, a private event that was held on a Saturday, which shows that they're finally taking Halloween Havoc very seriously. Let's get into it. The opening match was a 5-way ladder match to determine the new NXT North American Champion. As we know, the title was vacated after Solo Sikoa had won it, despite the fact that he was no longer a part of the NXT roster. Yet it seems to be okay that SmackDown and Raw people show up on NXT all the time and go after titles. Whatever. The participants, Nathan Frazier, Oro Mensah, Wes Lee, Von Wagner, and former two-time champion Carmelo Hayes. I gotta say, I could only get so much into this match because there was nobody in it that I was very excited about being the new North American champion. The only person in that match that I really am a fan of is Carmelo Hayes, and I don't want him to be the North American champion anymore. I think it's time for him to start challenging for the NXT championship. Nathan Frazier, he's okay, but I'm just not that impressed. Same with Oro Mensah. Wes Lee, I've never been that big of a fan of, and same with Von Wagner. But it's a 5-way ladder match, so I can't deny that that was exciting. Heck, it was kind of sort of a 7-man ladder match, as at one point, Trick Williams and Robert Stone both tried to get the belts. They were going to try and get it and give it to either Carmelo Hayes or Von Wagner, but still. Of course, we had the spot where somebody got put through a ladder. It was Von Wagner, who was put through the ladder by Nathan Frazier. Then after a little bit, Wagner got his by picking up Wes Lee and tossing him all the way from the ring, all the way through the announce table. But despite that big bump, it was actually Wes Lee who would end up climbing the ladder and retrieving the North American Championship, making him the new North American Champion. Honestly, I probably would have given this one a 5 if it wasn't for the fact that, again, I just really didn't care about the outcome, because I really don't care about any of these guys being North American Champion. The only one of those guys that I'm really a fan of, I want him to move on to bigger and better things. However, I can't deny the intensity and I can't deny the entertainment of this match, so I'll still give it a 4 out of 5. Then immediately following the match, we actually saw Mandy Rose, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane way away from the arena, like a backlot haunted house type thing, looking for Alba Fire. Basically, they were going to try and take her out before the championship match that night. Didn't work out, as Alba Fire took out Jane and Dolan and threw Mandy Rose into the back of a Range Rover to drive to the arena. Now the second match, a spin the wheel, make the deal, which turned out to be a casket match between Grayson Waller and Apollo Crews. It was a good match. It had a couple high spots, like when Grayson Waller put Crews through the lid of the casket so that he couldn't technically close the casket, which caused confusion for a minute until the Druids brought out a new casket. And Crews was eventually able to get Grayson Waller into the casket and close the lid, making him the winner. Like I said, the match was good for a match. But for a casket match, it was actually kind of lackluster. Not to mention, a casket match only works for certain types of characters. Like, obviously it worked for The Undertaker. It would work for some guy like Bray Wyatt. In NXT right now, honestly, a casket match would work for a guy like Joe Gacy. But it doesn't work for Grayson Waller and Apollo Crews. It's kind of like a gothic feel match, and neither of these two are anything like that. But I can't deny it was a good match, just kind of a letdown for a casket match. I'll still, though, give it a 3 out of 5. Yay! Then another spin the wheel, make the deal. Weapons match. Cora Jade versus Roxanne Perez. Good old-fashioned blood feud. Of course, the weapons were plentiful. Because of this, at one point, Cora Jade tried to run, ended up going to the top of the stage. And as she was attempting to throw Roxanne Perez all the way from the stage and down to a table, Roxanne Perez did a Russian leg sweep, putting them both through the table. Kind of bad strategy, honestly. Once, though, it got back into the ring, Roxanne Perez got her Pop Rocks finisher onto Cora Jade, onto a stack of chairs, and was able to get the pin and the win. And honestly, between these two, it was pretty brutal. Both were really good in this match. I am a fan of Roxanne Perez. I've liked her ever since I saw her in Ring of Honor. However, I kind of have to put most of this on Cora Jade in this match, who they mentioned actually had experience in these kinds of matches, whereas Roxanne Perez didn't, and you could tell. But still, either way, both of them put in the effort, both of them made a good match, and I would give it a 4 out of 5. Yay! Then, an ambulance match between Damon Kemp and Julius Creed. Stipulation being that if Damon Kemp wins, that Brutus Creed, Julius's brother, is fired. Of course, it's an ambulance match, so everything is legal, including weapons, and Creed started off with his own weapons. Pumpkins. Which I will say, pumpkins are for pies, not matches. But there were some cool moments, like when Julius Creed trapped Damon Kemp in a wheelchair, making him sit down and putting a crutch through so he couldn't get up, and then taking that wheelchair and slamming his face into some steel steps. And then after a lot of back and forth between Kemp and Creed, it was actually Creed who was able to get Kemp into the ambulance and close the door. Not only getting revenge on Kemp for him trying to implode Diamond Mine, but also saving his brother's career. It's an ambulance match, so I can't deny the brutality in it. Not to mention these two, though, are both 5-star athletes. But I just kind of feel like it was lacking a little bit, but still, easily would give this one a solid 3 out of 5. Then, we go back outside as the Range Rover from earlier pulls into the arena, and out of it comes Alba Fire and Mandy Rose, who fight all the way to the ring, so that we can finally start the match for the NXT Women's Championship between Alba Fire and Mandy Rose. And the good thing for Alba Fire is she left the other two members of Toxic Attraction way back in that little haunted house thing, trapped. So she gets to fight Mandy Rose all on her own. So she thought. Because after she hit a swanton onto Mandy Rose and was about to get the pin, here comes the other two members of Toxic Attraction. Apparently they hitched a ride, which led to Mandy Rose once again getting the kiss by a rose onto Alba Fire and getting the win, retaining her championship, even though her title reign is honestly getting really, really boring. Like, don't get me wrong, I give it to Mandy Rose. She's better than people give her credit for. However, this is kind of reminding me of Roman Reigns, where it's the same thing every time she defends the title. She goes out there, she puts on an okay fight, but she can't win. She needs the other two to help her. It gets redundant. I was really hoping that she was going to finally lose the title this time, but she didn't. We're still doing this. She's on her way to being the longest reigning women's champion. Even though I would say she's good, she's not good enough to pull that off. But we're going to keep going with it, I guess, and because of that lackluster ending, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. Yeah! Then for the NXT Championship, a triple threat match between JD McDonough, the returning Ilya Dragunov, and Braun Breaker. Honestly, it's one of the things that was exciting about this match is it's not very predictable. We don't know who's going to win. Are they going to give it to a guy who's come in and immediately become their top heel, JD McDonough? A guy who, honestly, in my opinion, didn't get the play he deserved in NXT UK, because he should have been a champion at some point. Or are they going to give it to Ilya Dragunov, the guy who was dominating NXT UK until he got injured and had to relinquish the title, which right after is when they ended NXT UK, so that later next year we can get NXT Europe? Or are they going to keep it on Braun Breaker, the guy they're pushing to the moon, who is good, but very one-dimensional? The match itself was very intense. There were so many close calls in this match. The one who got the most close calls was JD McDonough, making me think that that was exactly who they were going to give the title to. But Ilya Dragunov also had a ton of close calls, making me think they were going to give it to him. But then, despite this fantastic match, it got killed with a lackluster ending, as Braun Breaker was able to get a spear onto Ilya Dragunov and get the pin and retain his title. The thing is, I like Braun Breaker, I just don't like how much they're shoving him down everybody's throat. I don't think he's as good as they're promoting him to be, at all. He's very one-dimensional, whereas the other two, they're not. They're fast, they're high-flying, they're technical. They've got a lot of range as wrestlers, whereas Braun Breaker really doesn't. Basically, it's a situation of a guy is being pushed because he's big. And I'm sorry, being big, in my opinion, is no longer enough to be legit. I'm not going to say Braun Breaker hasn't had an okay title reign, but I think it could have been better. And I honestly think it's time to close it and give it to somebody else. But no, we're continuing with Braun Breaker is unbeatable because he's big and he's a monster. This match, though, again, it was just so intense, it was almost a 5. And the thing is, though, is even if Braun Breaker was going to win, he could have won much better than that. It was lackluster. This match was really on its way to being a 5, but that lackluster ending kicked it down. I would have been okay with either Ilya Dragunov or JD McDonough being the champion. I was actually more hoping for JD McDonough, but because of, honestly, the lackluster finish and the fact that we're still going with, I'm Braun and I'm big and I'm going to keep dominating, it knocked it all the way down to a 3 out of 5. So NXT Halloween Havoc overall, pretty good. Had a couple of 4s, mostly 3s. I will say what I like about NXT right now under the direction of Shawn Michaels is the build-ups. It had plenty of blood feuds. The Roxanne Perez-Cora Jade feud is a classic best friend turning on each other thing, which is awesome. The Damon Kemp versus the rest of Diamond Mine feud, that has been building up for almost a year, and it was a good match, but could have been better. Just saying. In my opinion, those two are such talented athletes. Making it an ambulance match kind of hurt it, because we don't want to see these guys hitting each other with sticks and chairs. We just want to see these guys go out and have classics. The 2 main title matches were disappointing because these would have been the perfect times with the perfect opponents to change the titles on reigns that are getting boring. And they didn't pull the trigger. Mandy Rose is still the champion, so we're still doing this, and it's getting redundant. Same with Braun Breaker. It's redundant that he's winning because he's just so big, nobody can beat him. He's not unbeatable, and I don't like people being presented as unbeatable because it's not as exciting. What's exciting is somebody who can be beaten, who keeps overcoming. However, I'm still giving the event points for the direction that it is going, the stories that it is telling, and the fact that I do want to keep tuning in to see what's going to happen later. Like, I'm actually excited to see what's going to happen in NXT. Plus, again, I give points for the fact that for the first time, NXT Halloween Havoc is not on the weekly show, but its own special thing, how it should be. So even though most of the matches themselves were 3s, I'm still going to give the event a 4 out of 5. Yeah! So there you have it. That's my wrestling review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit like. Hit subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notifications when I post the videos, and leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of NXT Halloween Havoc. Love you guys.